everyone, and welcome back to the Haunting Chronicles, a channel purely dedicated to diving into the dark side of the world where we cover all things mysterious, criminal, and haunting. I'd just like to add a disclaimer that this channel is recommended for mature age listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Today, we are covering two urban legends based on true stories that have been passed down for generations. Have you ever been driving down a dark, windy road and you get that feeling that someone's watching you? You tell yourself that it's all in your head, but the hairs on the back of your neck just stand up and you just can't shake that feeling. Our first urban legend starts on a dark and foggy night. The kind of night where you can only see meters in front of you, where the figures of the trees are hard to make out. It was late, too late. Rachel had just finished her shift at her local cafe. She was exhausted. Her head was throbbing, her feet were aching. All she could think about was getting home, slipping into bed, and finally getting some sleep. But she never made it home that night. At least, not the way she expected. Rachel stepped into her car, tossing her bag in the back seat. The parking lot was nearly empty, with just a few flickering lights above her, casting eerie shadows. Rachel pulled out of the parking lot onto the main road. The streets were super quiet. Then, in her rear view, she noticed headlights. A truck was close, a bit too close for comfort. At first, Rachel thought nothing of it. Just, another driver trying to get home like she was. Then the high beams flashed. Once, twice, again. It just wouldn't stop. But why? She checked her mirrors. She knew her taillights were fine. She didn't think she had a flat tire. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with her car. So why wouldn't the driver behind her stop flashing their light? The truck sped up, getting even closer. She changed lanes. So did he. She turned onto a different road. So did he. At this point, her heart was pounding. This wasn't random. He was following her. As Rachel continued down the road, her mind was flooded. What should she do? Her apartment was only 10 minutes away, but in her gut she felt like she shouldn't go home. Not with this truck tailing her. After all, he would then know where she lives, and who knows what could happen then. But then she spotted a service station. Somewhere well lit and with other people around. Somewhere she could feel safe, with help nearby. She pulled in fast into the service station. The truck also followed. Rachel threw her car into park, struggling to even get a breath. She was in such a panic. What was happening to her? Before she could even get out of her car, she saw the truck driver. She was so riddled with fear. A large, rugged-looking man jumped out of the truck and ran towards her. Rachel completely froze. Was this it? Was this how it happens? Some random driver just takes you into their truck and you just disappear? Rachel fumbled for her keys, her breath coming even faster. Then he shouted something. She couldn't even understand what he was saying over the sound of her pounding heart and the anxiety through her. Then she understood. He was screaming, "Get out of your car! There's someone in your back seat!" The truck driver was shouting at her to run. She felt it before she even saw it. A shadow in her back seat. It's like time had stood still. And that is when she saw him. He was there the whole time. The truck driver, her unexpected savior, kept shouting, "Get out! Run!" Rachel didn't think. She just ran. The truck driver grabbed Rachel, pulling her towards the service station. The service station attendant had already thrown open the doors, waving them in. As soon as they were inside, the attendant slammed the doors shut and locked them in. As they looked back, they saw him. The man in Rachel's back seat opened the car door and slowly crawled out. Tightened in his hand was a knife. Rachel felt like she was about to faint. If she had gone home, if she hadn't stopped at the service station, her gut just twisted in knots. She would have never seen him come in. She would have never made it out alive. The service station attendant had already called the police. The man tried to run, but thankfully he didn't make it far. They caught him. And when they searched his pockets, they found another knife, duct tape, rope. He wasn't just waiting, he was prepared. That thought still makes Rachel's skin crawl. Later, Rachel found out this wasn't even the first time. The service station attendant said he had seen something move in Rachel's backseat when she pulled in. That's why he locked the door so hastily. He had heard stories before. When Rachel started researching after this, she had found it wasn't the only case. This wasn't just an urban legend. There were so many cases based on this. In 1964, Mary P. Beck was murdered after someone had slipped into her back seat while she went into a store. Another case was in 2013. A woman had purposely crashed her car to try and escape someone hiding in her back seat. This man was known as a Texas backseat killer. These weren't just stories, they were warnings of the urban legend, the killer in the backseat. For our second story, we travel to the 1920s of Pennsylvania. There are stories that whisper through the hills, stories that creep through the rusted guardrail of Route 351. People saying they see a faint ghost-like figure in the distance. They say he wanders the street only at night, his skin glowing faintly under the moonlight, his face melted and twisted away. A man without eyes, without lips, not even a nose. But here's the thing, this ghost-like figure was actually a real person. Cruel people would call him Charlie No Face, but his real name was Raymond Robinson. And he wasn't a monster. He wasn't a ghost or a spirit, he was just a man. A man who lived in the shadows, because the daylight world was too cruel to let him in. A man the world refused to see. This all started on a warm summer night in 1919. In the quiet town of Beaver County, Pennsylvania, a group of boys wandered the countryside looking for adventure. One of them was Raymond. He was only 8 years old. Along their adventure, they had found themselves along an old trolley bridge, a towering structure of rusted steel stretching across the landscape. And there, high above them, were the power lines, thick black cables humming with electricity. Raymond wasn't afraid though. He was a curious kid, the kind of one that liked to explore abandoned buildings, the kind of kid who liked to climb trees and go places others wouldn't dare to go. And up there, nestled above the wires, was a bird's nest. He wanted to see it. He was already climbing. Hand over hand, he pulled himself up, past the rusting beams, past the warning signs. He kept going, higher and higher, until his fingers brushed against something they shouldn't have. 14,000 volts of electricity surged through his body. He fell, and he fell hard. But thankfully, he didn't die from it. However, when they found him, his body was burned beyond recognition. What was left of his face had melted away. No eyes, no lips, no nose. The poor boy had lost his whole face. Raymond Robinson had survived the impossible, but sadly, his life would never be the same again. Raymond spent months recovering. The pain was unbearable. Constant skin grafts, bandages, and horrible stares from doctors that didn't understand how he was still breathing. When he returned home, he wasn't the same boy that had left. And the world, it wasn't the same either. Children screamed when they saw him, strangers turned away. Even the people that was once his friends avoided him. He learnt quickly, the daylight world had no place for him. So he stayed inside, hidden away from prying eyes. He listened to the radio, crafting, trying to hold on to any piece of life that was stolen from him. But something inside him ached for more. The feeling of the open road, the cool air just blowing against his skin, the quiet of the world when everyone else was asleep. So, when the sun set, Raymond would go for a walk, and that is when the whispers started. A late-night driver catching a glimpse of something pale along the roadway. A group of teenagers daring to follow the faceless man. At first, people thought they were seeing things, but then the sightings continued. A man walking alone at night, his skin strangely luminous under the moonlight. His face nothing but scars and shadows. Some said he was a monster, others a ghost. But he was just Raymond. He was just walking along. Some people were so cruel. They would taunt him, throw bottles at him, insult him constantly. Others were afraid, driving faster, refusing to look. But there were a rare few, who saw the truth. And for them, Raymond would stop. He would talk to them, even sometimes taking a photo with them. And just like that, the urban legend of Charlie No Face was born. Some claimed he would steal your soul if you looked into the empty space where his eyes used to be. Some people sweared he glowed green, his body still charged with electricity after that accident many years ago. But the truth, Raymond was just a man who the world had left behind years ago. And with that, he walked. And as time passed, he grew older. His walks became slower, the roads more dangerous, with the never-ending changing world around him. He spent his final years in a care home. His long nights of wandering were behind him. And then one day, he was just gone. But his story has never been forgotten. Even now, long after Raymond's last walk, his legend still lives on. Some people still claim to see things moving along the Pennsylvania roads at night. Maybe it isn't a ghost. Maybe it's just a memory. A reminder that the scariest things in this world isn't the unknown. It's being forgotten. This urban legend is such a reminder to not judge a book by its cover. And remember, we can all feel alone at times, so it's so good to always reach out. And that's a wrap on Urban Legends Around the World Part 2. Join us next time as we continue to explore the dark side of the world. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, if you like this channel, subscribe for more. And remember, stay together, stay safe. Bye for now!